Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new edition of the Daily Debate. In tonight's show, we're going to be focusing on the youth of Egypt. We're also going to be focusing on the efforts exerted by the government to really establish and launch a lot of preparation and rehabilitation programs working on the empowerment of the youth, which would reflect on the future of the Egyptian society as a whole. But before we start doing that, let's check out some of the main stories making the news today. And we'll start off with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, who said on Monday that Egypt plays a central regional and international role in hosting large numbers of refugees of different nationalities who fled the Sudanese conflict. During his meeting with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, Grandi expressed his appreciation for Egypt's intensive efforts towards settling the crisis and restoring security and stability in Sudan. He also affirmed his keenness to enhance cooperation in supporting displaced people hosted in Egypt. Grandi also hailed Egypt's efforts with the UN organizations and the Egyptian Red Crescent to help Sudanese and other refugees escape the war in Egypt's southern neighbor. He reiterated that the international community, as well as donors, must provide support to hosting countries. President el-Sisi affirmed the refugees issue and all forms of displacement should be dealt with through a comprehensive approach, adding that this approach is meant to address the roots of conflict and achieve security, political stability, and inclusive sustainable development. The president also expressed appreciation for the UNHCR efforts to confront the escalating crisis in Sudan. According to the UNHCR, Egypt is the largest host of Sudanese fleeing the conflict, with an estimated arrival rate of over 5,000 individuals per day. On Sunday, the Egyptian Foreign Ministry stated that to date, 164,000 Sudanese have been granted access to Egypt through its southern borders. And we're joined now, ladies and gentlemen, over the phone by Ambassador Soad Shalaby, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Ambassador Shalaby, good evening.
Good evening, Annie.
Your Excellency, now, Filippo Grandi met with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi in Cairo, and they both reiterated the role being played by Egypt in hosting refugees now. Obviously, they are focusing on the Sudanese refugees fleeing the conflict there, but Egypt has been a pioneer in this file for many years now. How does this reflect 5,000 Sudanese a day so far, about 164,000 since the conflict began? How would you evaluate and estimate the performance of Egypt in hosting refugees now?
Egypt has been all the time opening its borders to refugees from different countries, even African and Arab countries who are suffering from different crises, and this is one of the advantages that Egypt does, that it does not treat the refugees as refugees. They are treated as normal citizens. That means that you can see a Syrian, Palestinian, or an Iraqi, or a Sudanese in Egypt, and you don't feel that they are living in camps or in distress. They are living normally like any Egyptian. So this is one of the advantages that Egypt allows the refugees to live in Egypt. And even when the Sudanese crisis erupted, Egypt welcomed the Sudanese who were fleeing through the borders in the southern
Yes.
in the southern borders. And I remember seeing a special presentation on how the Aswanis from the Egyptian Aswanis were welcoming the Sudanese in their homes and offering them food and shelter, just like as if they are coming from their own families.
Yes. Ambassador Shalaby, now, the President reiterated that it is the duty of Egypt really to host a lot of the refugees coming from Sudan, but he also pinpointed the important role being played by the UNHCR and donor companies in order to help countries such as Egypt, who are really becoming the home for refugees, especially the Sudanese refugees now. What can the donor countries and the UNHCR do to Egypt in return for its efforts of hosting the refugees?
Of course, we have UNHCR. This is not the first visit to Grandi. He was here 2 years ago, and also he appreciated very much the Egyptian intensive effort towards settling the crisis, the Sudanese crisis, and restoring security and stability in Sudan. UNHCR is very much, they have a big responsibility, and they have a responsibility all over the world. But when a crisis erupts like what happened in Sudan, then there has to be a special arrangement with the countries that are receiving the refugees. And Egypt is the biggest country receiving, it's the largest host country for Sudanese fleeing the conflict. So receiving every day the arrival of over 5,000 Sudanese through the Egyptian borders is not easy.
Yes.
Whether we are talking about official documents, whether we are talking about sheltering them in houses or in homes or or offering them food and medication. All this is given by Egypt. So UNHCR is helping Egypt, and also other donor countries are helping Egypt in order to be able to support all these numbers coming through the borders. Since as you mentioned in the beginning, that since the conflict started, almost 164,000 Sudanese have been granted access to Egypt.
Yes.
To the southern borders.
Well,
Nobody
Your Excellency,
knows how many through the northern borders.
yes.
So if you look at this crisis and how much Egypt is supporting and taking the responsibility of this crisis, you will find out that it's a huge responsibility. And not only UNHCR, I think many countries have to support Egypt in its mission.
Well, Your Excellency, if Egypt has proven great success in hosting refugees over the past few years, including the Sudanese refugees now, do you think this can really play a political sort of, or give us more of a political weight in other political decisions that includes the UN and maybe other countries within the international community, especially as well the donor countries?
Yes, of course. It is like a hub in the Middle East. Its geographical location have given Egypt this role, whether we like it or not. We are in the middle of the Middle East we are, in the gate of Asia and Africa, and we cannot stop this flow of refugees coming, for instance, from Syria, or from Iraq, or from Palestine. So also Libyans are also from the western borders. So it is very important that the pivotal role that Egypt is playing in the region and on the international level also. And this is why UNHCR chief is appreciating the role that Egypt is doing. And I'm sure that this regional role is going to give it another another step
Yes.
towards helping other influx of refugees in all forms of displacement. Like, for instance, there has to be a comprehensive approach
Yes.
towards addressing the root causes, and Egypt will be one of the players in this comprehensive approach, the role that we are playing
Definitely.
in the development and in offering the security and political stability to these refugees will also put a burden on us that we have to know what will happen next, like where are these refugees going to go after? Are
And determine and work on the future for them.
Permanently or
Ambassador
temporarily.
Soad Shalaby, former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you very much, Your Excellency, for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be off and we'll be right back. Stay tuned.